what I didn't realize then that I realize now is that this completely undermines the atonement. Because literally, because Brigham Young even said, and I didn't know this at the time, but I learned later, but Brigham Young had said that you need to go to the temple repeatedly to perform these ordinances so that you can make sure that you know the handshakes and the passwords so that you can get past the guardian angels that are guarding heaven. So if you don't know this stuff, you're not going to get through. And so it didn't even occur to me at the time that, like, wait a minute, okay, so what was Jesus' sacrifice for? You know, if it's secret handshakes and passwords that are going to get us into heaven, where does that leave Jesus?
Right.
And again, at this point, probably 20-year-old Jason is not thinking theologically that far ahead. All I know is the people that I love all love this ceremony, and I want to be accepted by them, and I want to be like them. And so it's interesting because later on, when my wife went through the ceremony, she was completely weirded out. But see, she didn't even know that I was weirded out because you can't talk about it, even with your own spouse. We couldn't even tell each other that we were both weirded out about it. Later on, we told each other, we're like, yeah, I didn't get that. And but we had no idea until years later after we were out of the church and we felt comfortable talking about it. I mean, it probably took years before I even felt comfortable talking about it because you're not supposed to talk about this.